Hello, and welcome to Inventors Helping Inventors. I'm your host, Alan Beckley, inventor of the Wonder Wallet. If you're an inventor searching for proven ways to make money with your invention, if you dream to see your product selling in stores everywhere, you've come to the right place. There's no better place to get help than from experts, inventors who've already achieved success. Every week, I interview successful inventors, asking them the questions you want to know. Tune in to learn from the experts so you can get your invention out of the tank and into the bank.
And then something else that's very big for me that I'm very excited about is I am currently working on my first self-publishing game.
It breaks my heart when an inventor reaches out to me after they've spent $10,000 or more with a company who made big promises, but then delivered little or nothing of value. When that happens, you're out $10,000 and you must start over again from scratch to market your invention. Some inventors maxed out their credit cards, hoping the company could make them millionaire inventors instead of putting them into deep debt. The good news is that I've helped many inventors by giving them my unbiased assessment before they plunk down thousands to work with the company. I provided them with detailed information about the company they wouldn't find on their own. Now I'm providing these services to you as a podcast listener. Like a private investigator, I dig into the data, the facts, and give you a detailed assessment. Then you can make a qualified decision whether to proceed with a company or to say no to them. I call this service PI Assessment. What will I provide you with the PI assessment of a company? First, I'll get on a Zoom meeting with you to learn what they're proposing to offer you, what you'll pay to work with them, details on the company, their website, etc., and a bit about you and your product. I'm happy to sign a non-disclosure. Second, I'll do my investigation, digging into data on the company. Third, we'll set up another Zoom meeting so I can share my findings and give you my assessment. Armed with my findings and assessment, you can choose what to do next. Your investment for the entire PI assessment is just $200. There are a lot of scammers out there, but there are also some good bona fide companies that help inventors in a variety of ways. I shared my assessment with one inventor from a company who claimed to help hundreds of inventors to license their products. That company was operating out of a UPS store, a P.O. box. Another company had a beautiful professional website showing their staff seated about an opulent conference table. Turns out their headquarters was the 45th floor of a luxury hotel, where the only businesses were those who paid $25 an hour to rent small meeting rooms. Not many staffers there. There are many other stories. If you're about to make a big financial decision and you'd like to know more, just email me at alan@alanbeckley.com. In the subject line, please put PI assessment, just like private investigator. I'll get in touch with you and we can take it from there. Let's make sure it's in your best interest before you spend a bunch of money. I look forward to talking to you. Again, just reach out, alan@alanbeckley.com. Welcome to episode number 548. Today, I interview April Mitchell. April Mitchell is a professional problem solver, creative thinker, idea machine, magic maker, and dreamer, also known as an inventor. April has licensed products in several industries, including the housewares, party, and novelty industry, while specializing in the toy and game industry, having licensed well over a dozen products. She currently has 5 products on the market and has 6 new products coming out in 2024. She has collaborated on design projects with established companies in the toy and game industry. As an expert at presenting and pitching concepts in the industry and engaging her audience, she enjoys passing her knowledge and experience to others through webinars, classes, and coaching. April spent several years as a professional product and licensing coach with InventRight and has helped many students successfully learn the licensing process and strike deals. April is a certified educator of birth through sixth grade. She understands children's developmental capabilities and is knowledgeable in age and ability appropriate toys and games. April is also an expert mom. The mom of 4-factor rings true and aids her in her work within the industry. She works with, teaches, and plays with children and teenagers to design and develop concepts for kids and families to enjoy together through shared experiences. April started from the ground up with no knowledge or degree in design or product development, much like many of you, and has learned what it takes to become successful in the toy and game industry. She had great mentors like Ed Garton to learn from. She listened to feedback, learned, and evolved as a game and toy designer, never giving up. She truly enjoys helping other inventors learn the game of industry. You'll want to listen to this entire interview where April shares how, despite the continual lure of cell phones and video games, April finds that children and their parents still love to play engaging games together as a family. Also, how she learned 3 ways to use AI as a productivity tool in her business to do more in less time, giving her more time for family and other activities. And finally, why she feels inventors just starting out should invent initially as a passion project or a hobby, and then gradually begin to make it into a business. This way, they'll understand marketing and licensing products takes a lot of time, energy, and money. Now, let's get right to our interview with April Mitchell. April Mitchell, it's a pleasure to have you back on the podcast with us again today.
Thank you so much for having me, Alan. It's great to be back.
You bet. April, we last interviewed you on the podcast way back on January 15th, 2024, in episode 372. For our listeners who've not listened to that episode, you might wish to pause this episode and then listen to that one first. But in that episode, April, you shared that you were planning to launch 6 products in 2024. Also, you mentioned you were working to collaborate with your dad on a new fishing product. And you mentioned your monthly column in Inventor's Digest, Meant to Invent. And then lastly, on that podcast episode, you mentioned that you were helping inventors through coaching. So anyways, that's to bring our listeners up to speed. But can you update our listeners on your progress over the last 18 months since January 2024? And I understand that you continue to invent items into the toys and game space, as well as housewares and other items. How has your invention journey changed since then? And lastly, what does your current slate of products look like for 2025 going into 2026? So that's 3 questions in one.
Sounds good. I will say, since I was last on, I did have the games come to market. They're now available for retail, and all of them are with various publishers. So each game is with a different publisher. So I have not yet taken my own products to market, but all the games are with other companies. So it's exciting to see how each company does things differently, marketing, bring things to market, and just how I can be a part of that is just different a little bit with each company. So it's been a great experience to work with the various game publishers to get those games to market. Since then, I also have been really focusing on games. I haven't done a whole lot in the other industries, except for the fishing product that you mentioned earlier with my dad. We've been banging down doors, trying to get that license. That industry has been a little bit more difficult for me to crack than other industries in the past. But what we've done thus far is we're taking it to the next level and getting a manufacturer ready product ready to go. We don't know, we haven't decided to fully take it to market, but we're trying to get it to that next level so that when a company does come around, we have that ability, or where we might take it to retailers and see about interest before we make that big jump to manufacture it ourselves. So we're trying to do a couple things at one time with that product while figuring things out. And then something else that's very big for me that I'm very excited about is I am currently working on my first self-publishing game. And like I mentioned before, I usually license my products out to other companies, other publishers, but this card game, I will be taking it to market myself. So I am the person in charge of making all the decisions. And it's been quite a unique ride and experience. I'm really enjoying the journey of this. And I chose a card game because really that's the least financial risk because it is a card game. It's small. I don't have to have any molds made for a specific game component or anything like that. So I really wanted it to be very affordable for my first game that I'm self publishing. And so I'm in that process. I don't have a launch date and I haven't released the name of the game yet, but it is just for your listeners to get a little excited about it. It is like a nice, super fun, fast paced game that's a mesh between Taco Cat, Piles, and Uno. So if anyone's familiar with any of those games or all of them, hopefully that will get them a little excited about the game. Right now, I'm in the final stages of the artwork. I'm not doing the artwork. I've hired an amazing artist to do the art, and she's been fantastic to work with. And we're just really making the final decisions. And then on the cards, the faces of the cards, and then next will come the box art, which is very similar to one of the cards. And then the really just tightening up the game directions and making them where there's images and fun game directions and not just words, not just copy on a piece of paper. So that's really what I've been spending a lot of my time on and what I'm really excited about for this coming year.
I was going to ask a couple questions off of that a bit. And there's so much focus on children having their eyes and faces and screens all day long and trying to get them engaged in building things and doing things and tactile and the kinds of things that we all did when we were kids. And I wondered, there might be a perception that something like card games are in the past, but it sounds like from what you're saying, there's still a big draw for card games and it has a low risk in terms of an introductory item for you as a self-published game. Would you say that's true?
Yes, I definitely think that's correct. And games that can travel easy is great too. People, they're going on vacation or they're going camping or whatnot. You can throw a deck of cards or a game box, small game box in your bag and it travels easy. So I think that's always fun to do. And games bring families together. And that's one of the reasons I really love designing games is one, because my family enjoys playing games and we like trying different games. And then we have our definitely our top favorites that we always come back to. And if we don't want to learn a new game or we don't have the brain power that we to go through directions and try something new, we have our favorites that we like to come back to. And if we as designers can create a game with very simple directions where someone, if they're learning it for the first time, they say, okay, we can learn this new game. It's only going to take 2 minutes to learn and then we can start playing. Then we're going to get to, I feel like we're going to get to families quicker. It's going to be just easy or to get in than say a hard, long strategic game. Though I do like to play some strategy games and have some light strategy games that I have licensed and that I'm pitching. But if we can get a family to learn a game in a minute or two and then get playing and the game only takes 10 minutes, then you have the opportunity to get it to the table, I think, quicker and more often. And then it's that whole, oh, you've got to play this game. Our family tried it and the word of mouth travels and it's exciting. But yes, definitely games bring families together, get kids and parents off the electronics. How often do you want to go out to eat and both the parents and the kids both on their phones and not even engaging in conversations? It makes me sad as a parent to see that. And so games really have the ability to just create that quality family time that we all need.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. My good fortune, or I view it that way, is both my children in their 30s now, and they both reflect upon the fact that they were born long enough ago that people just didn't hand out cell phones. I don't think they got their first cell phone until they were in their teens. And so they grew up young, engaging and playing in the backyard and doing all those kinds of things. And they did have some electronic games and things they played, but it just wasn't a dominant thing for them. Whereas today, especially the accessibility with it on cell phones and everything else, I think it's more of a challenge for a parent, I would say.
It is. It is. And I remember when the kids were young and we battled, like, when do we allow the Wii or the Xbox or whatnot? And we would do games that we could all play, like We Dance and We Golf and things that we were still moving and active. And my kids, they got limited screen time and electronic time. And now they're older teens, so they're getting to have a little bit more time on the electronics than they would when they were little. But still, if I say, hey, who's up for a game? They'll put down that remote controller and hang out with the family. And so because they know that's ingrained in them, that if they come to the table, there's going to be laughter, there's going to be fun, there's going to be some competition, and you can instill that in kids. So even when they do have the opportunity to choose a video game or just watch TV or YouTube, hopefully they'll come back to the table for the game.
That certainly makes a lot of sense. And I was going to ask, are there any brand new products or projects that you have in the pipeline coming up that you can talk about? And if you were to guess, how many inventions do you think that you might be launching in 2026, since it's right around the corner? Can you chat a little bit about that?
Yes. So I should, if everything goes right, have 4 to 5 new games coming out in 2026. And one being the game I'm self-publishing. One of the games, unfortunately, most of the time, publishers don't want them talked about and whatnot. But I am excited about one in particular that is with a company who's just has a long history in the toy and game industry. And they've been just really phenomenal to work with, where I've really gotten to be a part of every step of the way with this game. And as a game designer, we put our heart and soul in what we do, and any inventor usually does, right? And to be a part of it through every step has just been quite an experience. And some companies I get to do that with, some you give it to them and then you see the end product. So I've experienced everything in between that. And so I'm just really excited about this new game coming out. It was a solo game of mine that I was inspired after going to Gen Con for the first time last year. So in 2024, I went to Gen Con, and Gen Con is really unique in that it's a lot of hobby games mostly. But with hobby games, they have very unique and interesting themes. And in the mass market, oftentimes they'll say, oh, this won't be universal enough, or not, the theme's not going to hit everybody. And that's the difference with hobby games, is oftentimes they will see beyond the maps. It's okay if not every single person in the US is going to want to buy the game because of the theme. And so I feel like when you can really lean into a theme, you can really have some unique mechanics, which is what we did here with this game. Do something special and different when you can just really lean into a theme like that. Unfortunately, I can't even tell you what the theme is or the company, but hopefully when people see it and they listen to this podcast, they'll say, I bet this is the game April was talking about, because the theme is so unique and different. And the artwork is just fantastic and fabulous. And I'm really excited about that. And then the other games are just very still new that have been licensed that are supposed to come out in 2026. We're not to the process of seeing how things are already developed, but this other game is pretty finished and is getting in front of the retail buyers and everything right now. So I've gotten to go through that process already with this game. So I'm really excited about that.
That does sound exciting. And one of the comments you made, I'd like to reflect back for our listeners, particularly for anybody who's in the game space, is you talked about leaning into a theme. And that's a lot of fun, but it also creates, I think, a uniqueness that's going to be memorable for people. So for a game designer, that seems like that might be a good plan to do in that realm.
Oh, for sure. And with games, especially, it's all about the experience. And so when you can lean in that theme, they really feel like they're, let's just say, deep sea divers, or they're racing a go-kart, or whatever the theme may be, because the actions in the game, the mechanics follow the things like they would do in real life. I think it can just really add an extra element to that gameplay to say, okay, when I'm at the table, I'm like going into a whole nother world in a sense.
I'd like to shift gears slightly and ask a sort of hypothetical question. Are there any new trends that you've seen emerge for inventors since January of 2024? And I would guess one of those is certainly AI. But can you speak to new trends you're seeing? And if you feel inventors must dip their toes into the water and use AI, what are your thoughts on kind of both those items?
Yeah, so definitely AI has definitely been a trend. And I will say that I really dug my heels in with AI. I really was not sure how I felt about it. I wasn't sure what it would do for designers and inventors. I was questionable about how would I own everything, even if I ask questions. And so was a lot of unknowns for me personally. And I started to slowly use AI. And the number one thing I used AI for the longest is for helping edit game directions. And game directions can get really wordy, and you want to say something in the most simplistic way possible and have it be clear and concise so that people get what you're saying right away and they don't have to second guess it. And so I would type in AI, please make these game directions more clear and concise, or please limit the verbiage of these game directions by 25% to really cut things down and get the directions so that they're just simplified. And then I might say, okay, now let's add the theme in a fun way to these directions. So instead of saying something just generically, it would add something fun that went with the theme. And so that's how I had been using AI the past year specifically. And then more and more recently, I would say, gosh, I don't know, the last few months, I've been using it more and more for research on games while I'm designing. And so I might have some basic game directions for an idea I have, and I might put them in there and say, what games are currently available for retail that use these mechanics together? Or what theme uses these mechanics? I might also say, okay, if I end up going with the game and I start developing it, I might put in basic directions, and I might put in maybe the card prompts or the kind of cards or whatever I'm using, the game mechanics or components in there, and try to have AI help me math out things like the probability of, if there's three players playing, what's the likelihood of them getting this wild card if there's this many cards on the table, versus if there are six players playing, and things like that, because you want the game to play as excitingly, whether you have three players versus six players, and you want things to happen the same amount of time. And you don't want to say, oh, this game's way better with six players, because when we have three players, these cards are overused or anything on like in that area. So again, just AI has been really helpful for me lately because it cuts time. If I obviously I have to play test, I have to play testing so much, but if I can find that probability out, I'm cutting my play test down by a lot, because you have to play test a game to make sure it's very well balanced and certain cards happen the same amount of time and you move places if you're on a board game and all things like that. So if you can cut time out and get those things fixed right away, then you can really get to the nuts and bolts of the game and dig deeper. And so I've been really using AI for that and been really incredibly happy with the results that I'm seeing when I then go to play test, or we play test and then I alter the directions and ask a few questions for help in getting things mathed out after play test, and then go at it again. So that's been really helpful. And I would encourage people to do that. And then also just for searching up companies, and not just in the game industry, but companies that you could possibly pitch to that are open to outside innovation, or that are currently looking for designers or inventors. And it's amazing the results that you can get. And also, too, I would say on the IP side, and I'm not a lawyer and I always do more search afterward, but if I want to just do a quick search to see if a name of a game has a trademark, I'll put it in there and then it's, oh, I got to pick another name or I got to brainstorm on some more ideas if it comes up with something. If it doesn't come up, then I will probably go to the USPTO site as well. But AI has been pretty right on when I'm looking for trademarks, if they're available or not. So again, I'm just cutting my time, which is so valuable as an inventor, especially a game designer. Because if I were to come up with an idea in the housewares, I can maybe make a virtual prototype and make a sell sheet. Sometimes I might need an actual prototype and then can make a video and a sell sheet. But it doesn't take countless hours of play testing, where some games I might only need to play test 10 times and some need 20, 30 play tests. And so there's a lot of time that you spend on a game to make sure it will work every time you play. And I'm enjoying, I don't want to say extra time, but my time being cut by a large percent. And I don't know what it is, but by using AI for research and helping to math out, at least to get started on card counts and things like that.
And I agree wholeheartedly the value of AI. And actually, I've been doing a monthly workshop for inventors in my group on AI. In other words, I'm learning as I'm teaching it to them. And the one I did just this last week, call it the art of the query. The more accurate and detailed your query, the better results are going to be. And something that came as a surprise to me initially, but since I've tried it out, it's amazing. You can ask the AI, here's what I'm trying to find out. What is the best way to structure a query to you to gather that information? And it'll spit out a very lengthy, detailed query. And you just copy and paste that query back in there and wow, voila, you got exactly what you wanted.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Yeah. As we roll towards a close, are there any parting words you'd like to leave us with?
Yes, I would say that for people that are just getting started, I really think that whether you're inventing or designing, whatever you're doing in this industry, that to just really do it as a passion project or a hobby on the side of your regular job. I know we've talked about this, Ellen, before, where too many people think it's such a quick thing and they can invent a product, get a deal, a licensing deal, or get it on the market themselves and be making millions of dollars in a half a year. And unfortunately, just this takes time. Everything takes time to get to that spot, whether you're licensing or manufacturing and going to roll over and actually make some money. Right. So it does take time to do that. And then also just to keep with it because it does take time and to not give up. I've seen so many people have amazing products when I was coaching and they just didn't make it to the market. And I really feel like they just gave up too early. And I know it gets long and it's hard to research and find companies, but I really do think now, especially with the help of AI too, you can get to who you need to get to quicker. You can get a list of possible companies and hopefully get there faster. And of course, LinkedIn is a great place to get connected with people and start building relationships with them and hopefully get to who you need to, whether it is licensing or taking your product to the market yourself.
My last question then is how can our listeners reach you if they have other questions?
Yes, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I would say that's where I'm most active. I'll post videos and share thoughts and updates on LinkedIn. And so it's just April Mitchell on there. And then 4A's Creation is my company. So I'm sure there's other April Mitchells on LinkedIn. So if you look up for the digit 4, ASCREATIONS.com. So 4AsCreations.com you'll find me on LinkedIn that way. And then that's my website as well. And then on Instagram, I'm April Mitchell _meant to invent. And I have a monthly column in Inventors Digest as well with April Mitchell meant to invent. So hopefully you can find me there and I can answer questions on LinkedIn for you. And hopefully you'll get some inspiration and some just thoughts, helpful hints and tricks that I post there weekly.
Thank you so much again for being on the podcast with us once again for the third time. And just for our listeners, I suspect this is obvious, but your last name spelled with two L's, Mitkchell, and April is spelled as you might expect. So thanks again for sharing your experience and the things you've learned with our listeners. We really appreciate it and appreciate you being on the podcast. And hopefully another 6 months or a year, we'll dive in with another interview with you and see what's going on in 2026.
That would be fantastic. And then I can share what came out in this next year that I'm really excited about. So thank you again, Ellen, for having me. I appreciate being a guest on your podcast.
You bet. I want to take just a couple of moments to do something I don't do often enough, and that is to give you a huge thanks for being a loyal listener to the Inventors Helping Inventors podcast. If you've listened to 2 episodes, or 200, or 400, or anywhere in between, you are a loyal listener, and I appreciate every single one of you. This particular week is very important and meaningful to me. Why? Because on January 14th in 2019, I started this podcast 6 years ago. And I have to tell you, when I first started this podcast, I didn't know if I could find 50 inventors I could interview for the podcast, much less over 300 that I found and more coming to me every day. It's absolutely amazing, and I just love this journey. Without you and podcast listeners all over the world, this podcast would certainly not be going. So once again, I want to thank you. I'm so excited to now have gone on for 6 years with this podcast. My goal is to help you and inventors all over the world by bringing you interesting guests with interesting inventions and cool products, and to share their life stories, their challenges, and their aha moments with you. I hope this will help you as you go through the challenges with your own invention. Now, I'd like to finish with a small favor, and that is if you could take just a couple of moments and give me not only a rating, preferably 5 stars, but also a review on either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. That would be amazing. It helps the podcast more than you might know to keep going and to draw other listeners just like you. And sometimes inventors tell me, well, I don't listen to podcasts, so where do I find it? If they tell you that, here's what you tell them. They can always find the podcast on www.alanbeckley.com/podcast. They can find every episode there. So thank you again for being a loyal listener, and more is coming in 2025. Thanks so much for tuning in to Inventors Helping Inventors. If you like the show, please tell your friends about it. Make sure to subscribe in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts so you won't miss a single episode. Talk to you soon.